All right, well, we are recording. Hey, everybody, this is SANDCAST, beach volleyball with an absent Bourne out in Hawaii. The time difference is a little bit too much. But today we have someone who spent a good deal of time in Hawaii. We have Miss Julia Scoles coming on the show. How we doing, Julia?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you on. You've had a really interesting last several years, but this last year and a half in particular has been pretty fascinating, going from Hawaii and then transferring to SC and then having kind of a year delay at SC. And now you're back in school now. So is like life being somewhat normalized?
I wouldn't say normalized, but I feel like I've gotten used to the new normal. Like I've found a routine that kind of works for me. It's not necessarily the sense of a routine where it's every day is the same thing, but I'm okay with like every day being different, but as long as I get what I want to do done in the day, um, yeah. But
Yeah.
it's awesome to be here and just have, like we talked about before, you press play, the roommate situation has been awesome. So just getting to spend quality time with good friends and also train, which has been nice since we live close to the beach. So
Yeah. So I know so you're off campus. How far away are you from, I'm guessing the closest would be Hermosa or maybe Manhattan?
yeah, so we're like 30 minutes away.
Okay.
It's not too bad, but
Yeah.
definitely drive.
Yeah. Are you guys allowed to be practicing on campus right now?
No, we're not. So apparently we've
Okay.
got approval from the county, but USC is doing its own protocol with bringing sports back,
Okay.
um, just so that they can manage numbers and like the different teams that have priority whose seasons are coming up and stuff like that.
Okay. That's really interesting because I've seen videos of LMU and they're practicing. So I didn't know, but I know that Pepperdine can't practice.
Mhm.
And I guess you guys can't practice. I know that I've seen the UCLA girls down at like Huntington sometimes. I feel like everyone's just scrambling, finding a way to get some touches in.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we've actually gotten together a few times down at the beach, all of our team, trying to do it on a more consistent basis.
Yeah.
And it's good just to see everyone and play together and like get some quality reps in.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like you've done a pretty good job of able to getting some reps in. I know you and Hailey played in one Waupaca, which congratulations again, by the way.
Thank you.
And then you got another dub out in Myrtle Beach. What, two weekends ago?
Yeah, I think 2 weekends ago.
Awesome. So how tough has it been for you, like getting into a brand new environment in Southern California? Like what was at the time the best place to play beach volleyball, and then we weren't allowed to play beach volleyball here.
Yeah,
How tough has it been for you to kind of make that adjustment? What is already a difficult one, like transferring for just 1 year, but you had to do it in these really bizarre times.
yeah. So I wasn't out here when beach volleyball wasn't allowed. So I was in New York for most of the summer,
Okay.
which there's no beach volleyball besides an hour and away. This place called Sharky's, which is actually like an amazing spot. And like Jim Nichols, he used to play on the tour
Okay.
like a while back, so he owns that place. And I'll drive down like maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but it's definitely a day trip. So that's kind of how I train for Waupaca, and then um, they're like obviously like we practiced the day before and then played in the tournament, and then coming out here was happened in August, and then like right when I was out here I already knew Hailey, and we just kind of hit the ground running with like finding people to practice with and like setting up our own schedule. And so honestly like it hasn't been a crazy challenge,
Yeah.
um, just because like we have each other, and if like we can't find another team, it's still um, good to get reps just the two of us, or like even sand workouts and conditioning, just like staying in shape and knowing that like this will look different than what it normally looks like for everyone, and being okay with that, but like still putting our heads down and working as much and as hard as we can with the circumstances, and
Mhm.
not having that be like a crutch as to why we can't do something, or um, why, well, obviously abide by the guidelines. Like you shouldn't say, like you shouldn't do it if it's like not healthy for or safe for others around you, but like there's no excuse to not do a workout in your living room. You
Right.
know, that's your home. Like you can do it. So we've been doing like a lot of at-home workouts and then socially distanced like stuff at the beach
Right.
um, when we're with others. But like obviously we live together. So yeah.
Yeah. I know when I saw you and Hailey in Waupaca, you were like so stoked. Obviously, you won, and that's like a bucket list or tournament to win. And you were like, "This is the first time I've won anything," and it just happened to be like the biggest one of the year. I mean, how fun was that for you to, especially the way you'd been training in New York? Like, how fun was it to just like first tournament with Hailey and your first win? Like, you vibed right away.
Yeah, it was honestly crazy and like still a surreal moment. And I just kind of went into the weekend with like the mindset of like, I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful that there's a tournament happening. I'm grateful for an able body to even compete with. So like I was not expecting to win at all. I still kind of like how'd that happen because there are just so many like really good teams there, including your wife Delaney, who's phenomenal. Just like what it was just amazing. So yeah, like training in New York wasn't really like I definitely could have been training more hardcore, but I kind of took that opportunity as like, okay, I'm going to be in California in the fall. I'm with my family now. So I wasn't like in super uh, training, like a super training mindset. So I kind of went into the weekend like, I don't feel prepared.
Yeah.
But like I want to get to know my roommate, like I want to be active, I want to have fun. And so I think like not having like pressure or expectations really was a learning point in that as well, because it freed up my playing, it freed up just like the fun we were able to have. And like that's the whole point of the sport anyways, is like if you don't love it, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
So it was just like a good reminder, like have fun while you're doing it,
Yeah.
don't put expectations, because yeah, it's pointless.
And maybe, I mean, maybe you found the ticket to success. Just train a little off and on in New York, and bam, win Waupaca.
I don't think the lack of training was the
All right, so maybe we won't prescribe that system then. But what you mentioned that you're kind of able to get back into a routine. What's like your day to day looking like right now? And I guess when did you kind of settle into that? Because I know that obviously it's been a little different this year than in past.
yeah. So I I'm in graduate school now, so that's been an adjustment, but it's
Yeah.
been super cool to be doing a program that I really am interested in and love, instead of taking like random gen eds that you're like, why
Right.
am I taking this? I have no interest. So I don't actually only have two classes a week, and those are Wednesday and Thursday at night, and they're like
Okay.
3 hours long. So it's a chunk of time, but that frees up like our week, and Haley's on the same schedule. So for each day, it kind of switches the times of like when we're working out and when we're training on the beach, but we try to train 5 days a week on the sand, like with another team or with like a group setting. And then we try to work out as well, like 5 times a week. And then we vary whether that's like arm day, strength, endurance training. Like, I actually have these videos that my friend, she works, well, she doesn't work there, but she loves this place called Bourne Boot Camp, and it's kind of
Okay.
popular on the East Coast. And they created like online videos since quarantine, and they're about like 45, 50 minutes, but like they get you good. So and you need like minimal equipment and like minimal space, so they're perfect for this kind of like setting where we're like we don't feel comfortable going outside of our apartment to work out or run in the street because it's just not like the best area.
Right.
um, so yeah, so we stay inside, like do one of those workouts and then train on the beach like pretty much every day.
Let's say that's 10 workouts a week, 5 days on the beach, and five burn boot camps. You guys are going to be fit.
I mean, yeah, it's a still, we're still have like a good balance of rest and then also um, the workouts.
Yeah.
So I like be honest with like skating the line of like overtraining and then um, recovery and rest.
Yeah. Do you guys know what the schedule is going to look like? Like, have you talked to Dane or or like, has the NCAA said anything at all about what the spring might look like? Or are you guys just kind of training and being ready for whatever may come?
Yeah. So from what like I've heard so far, like going to be normal, but I don't know that. So I think
Okay.
everything's still so up in the air that it's like we're hoping for a normal season, normal dates, just obviously like adjusting to this off season and training and in that sense. But we're hoping that things will become more normal like once 2020 is over. Just like the drop of the ball on New Year's. It's like and everything's normal.
Yeah. And the weird years turned off. Everyone can resume.
Gone.
Has it been, I mean, obviously with the way that you're training right now, it doesn't seem like it's impacted like motivation at all, but I know a lot of, like my friends who play like AVP qualifiers and stuff, like a lot of them have just stopped playing entirely because there's nothing really to train for, but it seems like you've taken the opposite route. I was curious like how the motivational aspect has been with how much uncertainty there is with what competition may or may not be coming up.
Yeah. I haven't really analyzed like my motivation. Like I haven't had a
Yeah.
question about it, but now that I'm thinking about it, I would say that I'm not necessarily like looking into the future. Like I'm just looking into like the 24 hours ahead of me.
Okay.
And then looking back on my past, I know what it's been like to like literally not be able to compete or work out or do any of that because of like concussions and it affecting like my heart rate and so many random things. And then also when I used like the transition when I first switched to beach volleyball was so hard that like I didn't enjoy the sport. And now I love the sport. And then I know my goals in the long term with this, and I don't see COVID around for like the next 5 years, and that doesn't change my goals for like the next 5 years. So I feel like I'm kind of exactly where I want to be, doing exactly what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
And I just am like every day I'm like, let's get after it.
I love that. There's a couple different directions we could take. I kind of want to start with like you mentioned long-term goals, or at least the next, 5-6 years. Where do you what are you shooting for? Because it seems like you're on this beach path, kind of through and through here.
Yeah. So since I was like a very young child, my ultimate dream has been to go to the Olympics. And like that's a super far out there dream and I understand that. And like I'm honestly okay if I try my best and fail.
Yeah.
Like I have that dream for a reason, so I'm going to give it everything I can and everything I have for like the time that I'm healthy and the time that I'm able to financially or whatever. And then after that time, I'm going to reevaluate. So I have like this top 5 year plan of like once 5 years after college, evaluate where I'm at. If I'm not making a living or if like I need to readjust my path, then I'll do that. But for 5 years, I'm going to like fully like dedicate myself to those dreams.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, so my ultimate dream is the Olympics. And then I would love to be able to like make a living and do beach volleyball professionally and whatever that may look like.
Yeah. Why 5 years? Where'd you get that number from? Is that just kind of one that you pulled out? Because I know like everyone has a different timeline. So Jake Gibb, his was 2. When him and Jane got married, and then he was like, all right, well, let's try this out. And so Jane kind of gave him a 2-year window to kind of make it work. And at the end of the second year, I think he got picked up by Stein, and they started traveling the world, and he was winning and making enough money. And a couple of my friends have said 3 years or 5 years by the time I'm 30. I'm curious. I'm always just so curious where people get their number from.
Yeah, so when I first switched, like when I first transferred to Hawaii, I said 5 years then,
Okay.
and that would be like my remaining 3 years of undergrad, and then have like 2 years after that.
Okay.
But now that I'm here, I'm like, oh, just keep pushing it back. 'Cause I'm like, the more time there is, like the more time there's an opportunity for it to come to fruition.
Yeah.
Per se. And I also would just say that's a ballpark number where it's like if it's I know it's not working like 4 years from now, then I'll also just say, okay, like this isn't working, like I need to make a living, I need to do something practical for supporting myself and not have to like mooch off my parents the rest of my life.
Right.
Or but then also like if I'm right on the cusp at 5 years, I'll be like, okay, maybe 2 more years.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And I feel like that's a good approach rather than just like a really hard deadline. And
Yeah.
like, well, if I didn't do it by this quad, then I'm out. It's like, well, you're the third ranked team in the US, so maybe one more quad is worth it.
Right. Well, the 5-year Olympic thing is not necessarily like accurate, but the 5-year professional thing of like if I'm not near making money, then I'm like, okay, I need to switch this, you know?
Yeah.
Like if the one follows the other, like that's fine. It's just like the professional one obviously has to come first.
Right. Has your success against professional players so far helped you kind of, like you mentioned at Hawaii, you're saying, all right, 5 years, I'll do 3 at Hawaii and 2 professional, but you made the finals in Seaside, and then you won Waupaca, and you had to beat people who either their full-time job is playing beach volleyball, or you've beat people who have made a plenty of main draws. Has that kind of helped you, give you the confidence that like, yes, like this is very possible, I can do this. Let's maybe push that to another 5 years.
Um, I think so. Like I also have like not really analyzed this as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just have like such respect for these players and like don't expect to win at all. And then I think beach volleyball is like anybody can win on any given day. And if you have like the drive and determination, I feel like that's another thing that just like separates someone who may have like the exact same skill as well as sorry, I just lost my train of thought. But like everyone kind of has like a baseline skill, but the fine tuning slash like execution of those skills is what separates them. So I think like I'm still very raw on the beach. Like I still feel like I'm just like starting because like in a way I kind of am, even though it's
Yeah.
been 2 years. But I just see like the ceiling and it's almost like so exciting to know like there's so much growth to be had. Um, and that if I can like hone in like the skills set that like indoor has given me, then like I think it'll translate well on the beach and just hopefully like with my goals as well.
Yeah. Being like kind of a beginner in something is the most frustrating, exhilarating experience, because it's so frustrating, especially because you were at such an elite level in indoor, which is obviously a very close sibling to beach. And then
Mhm.
so I'm sure that it was frustrating just because beach is so different, moving in the sand and the court's a different size. You have to do all these different skills, but then like learning is also such a blast. And I feel like you're just the way you're talking about your mindset, I feel like you have kind of a very good growth mindset that when you like learn something new, it's like, yes, like let's do that tomorrow. How has your experience been from kind of making that transition from indoor to beach, to where you are now? And even though you've been playing for just a couple of years, I think it's been pretty dang fast.
Ugh, yeah. So if someone were to tell me how different the two sports were before I switched, I honestly probably would not have switched. People, like have gone into it like completely blinded, like, oh, I'm gonna move halfway across the world to play a sport that I never played before, but I have the word volleyball in the name, so like it should be pretty like similar.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, that initial transition, I was like, what am I doing? Like this doesn't align with like my skill sets from indoor. I don't think I've tipped like more than 5 times in like my whole career at college. So off speed shots was like so new to me, and it's still so new. I'm working on my different shots,
Yeah.
so it's gonna take that. Um, but yeah, so the transition was definitely super hard at first to the point where I'm like, I don't like beach volleyball. Like I just didn't enjoy it. It was so frustrating. Like I wasn't having fun with it. And then once I kind of like started competition at Hawaii as well as just like learned more about the game, I've started to have more respect and more um, just like sheer love for it because I think it's like one of the most unique games in the world, just in the sense you can be on the beach playing in like beautiful weather, um, jump in the ocean afterwards, and then just like tactically how the game's played. It's like not only do you have to be like super athletic to move around the sand, but you have to really like fine tune your mind and think about things in a methodical and almost like futuristic way of like anticipating what they're going to do next and oh, if you just did this, you should probably switch up your block call so like you catch them off guard with what you've been doing. So it's just like so much more than like mindlessly like, okay, make this pass, go out, oh, the setter's setting me, now just go up and hit it as hard as I
Yeah.
can. Because that was kind of like my mindset in indoor, especially like
Right.
I was a freshman, so I didn't know, like I just did what the coaches told me, I did what my other teammates told me, and everything's so exact in indoor. I feel like the form is this, like if your angle's off by like an inch, you're like, okay, you know, to fix everything like to a T, like of a formula almost, where beach I feel like is more subjective, and you find kind of what is your style of play and like what works for you, as well as like the fundamentals and mechanics are important, but I feel like it holds a different importance than indoor.
Yeah. That's so interesting that you are already kind of tuning into how important the strategic and mental side is. Cause I feel like that's one of the last things to come around, is to play, like kind of figuring out that chess match, especially because indoor, like you said, you were on the younger side at North Carolina. So it was probably like your setter was probably quarterbacking, and your coach, you're probably just kind of listening and like getting up and banging balls, like you said. Um, where did you learn, who kind of taught you the mental side of the game? Or was that something that you just figured out that like, wow, this is a lot different. I got to start figuring things out on my own here.
Um, you asked that question and like I can't really think of anything that comes to mind, but
Yeah.
our roommates, like we just had a conversation last night about chess and how it paralleled to volleyball, beach volleyball. And so I think like that was a reason like I also brought it up right now, because it was like so fresh on my mind from the conversation last night. But yeah, like those early days at Carolina, my motto was just like see ball, hit ball. Like nothing more than that went into the thought process.
Yeah.
But now like I noticed that like sometimes I'm thinking, but sometimes I'm like, why did I do that? Doesn't even make sense why I did that, because like I didn't think about it. And it's like very different too, because I would view myself as like a reactionary player. And then indoor we would do like film sessions, and I'm like, if I focus on like what the other team's doing and like want to do what's like what works against that team, like I feel like my level of play went down, because I would be like more so in my head than just freely playing. And so that's what I feel like I've been trying to balance, is like the reactionary, like trusting my body to do what it's supposed to, but then also like in the middle of play, like, hey, there is like the line's open, hit there.
Yeah. I feel like it probably helped that, your first kind of beach experience was you were surrounded by a tremendous group of people to learn from. Because I mean, Jeff Hall is a great coach, and Evan Silverstein is one of my favorites. We had him on the show not too long ago. And then you played with Ari your first year at Hawaii, right?
Yes, Ari was so helpful. I called her mini coach, and the same with the coaches. Like they're amazing. Evan is like has a fervor for the game like no other. Like he's so enthusiastic and just passionate about the game, and like I feel like I learned a lot from him in that sense of just like really loving the game, and then also like you said, like tactically approaching the game. But Ari was like my saving grace my freshman year, because in competitions obviously coaches aren't allowed to coach you, so like practices was great, but in competition I'd call Ari like my mini coach. I'd just like look back and be like, what am I supposed to be doing? And she would just tell me, and then every play I'd be like, what am I supposed to be doing? So she just gave me like a lot of good feedback and information, just like really her experience and knowledge like really helped me just learn the game. And yeah.
Did you feel any pressure going to a program as kind of prestigious as Hawaii is, as kind of a newcomer to the sport?
Yeah. For sure. Like I was so thankful for Hawaii, because I felt like the coaching staff like believed in me before I like believed in myself as a beach player. And so when just like the recruiting process and having conversations with them, and like them kind of getting to know me as a person, they're like, okay, like we think that you could do this. And like I really wouldn't have probably made the switch if like they didn't believe in me, I guess. So going out there, I was like just so scared, but also like faith is super important to me, and I felt like God was leading the way to that decision and that choice. And looking back on it, like it was totally like a divine God intervention type thing of him leading me in that direction. Um, and so just being there was like, yes, intimidating, but also I felt peace and like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And all I was like hoping to do was just try my best, and whatever the outcome is would be the outcome.
That's such a cool feeling to have peace with such a big decision, because obviously that's a huge decision. I mean, you were going halfway across the world, however many time zones away from your
Yeah.
family. Where else were you looking? Like, how did you end up at Hawaii? Because I know you were an indoor player in North Carolina and a phenomenal one, and then you had concussion, which we can get into a little bit if you want. But how did you kind of make that next step? What were your options?
So I didn't necessarily know if I wanted to leave Carolina. And before like the NCAA passed the rules of like you're allowed to enter the portal on your own and you don't need your coach's approval, there's like
Hmm.
the permission to contact thing. I don't know the exact like legislature or like
Yeah.
words used to describe it, but basically meant that I could keep my scholarship at Carolina while talking to other programs without getting like fully released. Um, so I just made a list of like 5 schools, and those being like Hawaii, everything West Coast, so like California schools and Hawaii, and there was 5 of them, and I was like, coach, like I don't know what this is going to look like. Like I know that I don't feel comfortable or safe on the indoor court at all anymore, and like he was very understanding of that. And if I were to stay at Carolina, I was probably going to medically retire and just become like um, just one of the managers or something like that, because I still love the program and like wanted to be involved in any capacity that I could. Um, but after like I toured some schools in California during spring break, and then after that felt so lost because nothing felt right. And also like the financial piece, like my parents were not going to like pay for me to go somewhere where like I've never played the sport, and like they didn't have like a college fund saved for me.
Right.
So that, along with just like the sheer like I just didn't feel at peace, like you said. So I thought, oh well, this is it, like I'm not gonna play beach volleyball, like I'm not gonna pursue this dream. And then I was like, but like I guess I'll visit Hawaii, not thinking that I was actually gonna go there, because it was such a far jump that I was like, I've never even been to the West Coast aside from the tour that I just had like a week ago. So
Yeah.
like from the West Coast to Hawaii in like 2 weeks and being like, okay, well, let's go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah. The trip was very good, and like um I just felt like a lot of peace about it and prayed about it, and like God made it evident that that's where I should go. And so I was like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Where does that piece, like, what does that feel like to you? Because that's a big decision. Everyone, I feel like, especially because I'm like fairly Christian faith based as well, so then I'm always so curious like what that feeling is like for someone else when they just know that it's the right decision, even though it's obviously like a very big one, that was kind of a turning point in your life. And it's such a cool feeling. And I don't know like what that is like for you, where it
Yeah, I think it's hard to articulate and put in words,
yeah.
but I would say like the Bible says, like it surpasses understanding. So it just doesn't make sense. And that happened a lot like within my recovery process from like the head traumas, is that I would be in significant pain, but and like also not know what my future looked like at all before like the piece of beach volleyball came into the picture. And I just like would feel like peace that surpassed understanding. And not to say that it's like I still would have anxiety, like I would still be like stressed out about things, but like I don't know, I guess just saying the saying of like when you know,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like how it was for me.
Yeah, it's probably a pretty cool feeling to like make that move to Hawaii and get there. I bet I'm sure that was just like such an exciting new chapter of life, like different sport, way different climate, and different spot geographically.
Yeah, actually, like the first year was such a hard transition. Like
Really?
yeah, I like nothing like that like it wasn't like me against like University of Hawaii. You know what I'm saying? Like I just hated being there because I was so far removed. I said goodbye to my old life, which was like I loved Carolina. I
Right.
loved my friends there. Like relationships are huge for me. So like saying goodbye to those people that have been so formidable in my life thus far, I was like devastated. And then saying goodbye to indoor and like having to watch it like the NCAA tournament go on all fall and not knowing beach volleyball, just like being so lost in the sport. And then we had like an off-season tournament against Cal Poly, and that was like my first beach game ever, and I just got literally like slapped. Like I'm I'm struggling so bad, and then yeah, just like kind of feeling isolated, like having to remake new friends and just not I don't think I was fully recovered from my concussion as well. So it was just still just a super hard process. And like after that year, I was like, Mom, like I want to come home. Like I can't do this, what not. And then the following year, it was like night and day difference. It
Really?
was amazing. And it was like the best year. Um, yeah, made some amazing memories. Like the team was amazing. Beach volleyball started to click. Like everything kind of just like fell into place. And I was like, okay, now I know that this was the right decision now. But
Yeah.
like the year, I was like, what? That's the thing. It's like faith is like a waiting period, and like you still have to have faith in those moments that are hard and like you want to run, but it's not you that's controlling it. It's like the hot God. So
Yeah.
it'll
It's such a bummer that the season was cut short. You guys were playing so well. And you played such a different role on the team because your first year, like we mentioned, you were partnered with Ari, who is maybe like one of the winningest players of all time at Hawaii, and like clearly knows a ton about the game. And I think she was a volunteer assistant this
Mhm.
past year, right? Okay, so you still
Yeah.
had your mini coach.
Yes. Mini coach to my actual mini coach.
But then you were playing with Maya Hanneman, who
Mhm.
was a freshman, I think, right?
Yes.
So did you kind of have to adopt a kind of a leadership role on that partnership? I know she's grown up playing beach, so I'm sure her beach knowledge surpasses pretty much any other freshman
Yeah.
in the nation. But it's a very different role for you to play, going from kind of being led and taught to having to be the senior on the team and someone who has like a really good track record on the beach.
Yeah, I think her experience coming in like spoke for itself, and she was very beach savvy, and I learned a lot from her in that sense. So I feel like we both adopted leadership roles in the sense I was still learning some of the beach nuances and aspects of that game from her, but then obviously I have more experience playing at a college level and having those high pressure moments. And then also I think indoor versus beach, like the mentality may be like a little different. And I in the Carolina gym, it was very like high intensity, almost like um the whole team was kind of holding each other to like a high standard instead of like the coach being like on your butt, you know. It was like
Yeah,
everyone was on your butt. So
yeah,
but like, people respected that. They're like, okay, like we're here to make each other better, we're here to like bring each other to the highest level. Um and so anyone who would say anything to you, you'd be like, okay, that's like where their intention is coming from. Where beach, I feel like it's more like a little more laid back in the sense of like just how you approach practices or games. And it's like, this is, we do this because we love it and it's fun, and it's not like, and indoor as well, but it's just like the two mentalities in my mind are like a little different. So I
yeah,
think I have that some of that intense side of like um knowing what my partner is capable of and like wanting to hold them to the highest standard. And I think Maya also like has that in her as well, but like I wouldn't know how to balance, like how do I be like, hey, it's okay, versus like, okay, we need to do this. And so
right.
I it was a learning part for both of us with communication style and just understanding how we both operate, because ultimately like my goal is to be the best partner for you. So whatever that partner responds to, like that's what role I want to adapt to. And I think that's important across the board for like any partner. Is like your goal is to get the best out of them. So like if you can do that in this way, and it's not necessarily your normal leadership style or your normal communication style, it's going to be most effective for them. So like you acknowledging that and learning how to adjust and change to that, I think is pretty important.
Yeah. Do you think having an indoor background and having so many different teammates who need to be talked to in so many different ways, do you think that helped you kind of figure out how to get the best out of just all you need is one? You just got to figure out one partner in beach.
Yeah, I think so. I also was like a freshman the only year that I played at Carolina. So
Yeah.
like I said earlier, I was just kind of like I'm here, like I'm excited, like just tell me what to do. And I was more of the like um follower per se. So they were the leaders, and I would just say like I was a good follower, and I would try to like lead by example in my actions, but not necessarily be vocal. I would say I just developed like good relationships with all the girls, and if I said, hey, like I think this would work if you did this better, like I would do it in that way instead of like, let's go, like here we go team, like more of
Yeah.
the motivational side of things.
Right.
But yeah, I think it was very helpful to have um, just even in club as well, just in high school, just having so many different personalities on a team and all working together to accomplish the same goal. Um, it's definitely like a good learning process for all aspects of life. So after like volleyball's over, like that'll serve you well and if it's corporate life, because you're able to work together with so many different personalities, like to, like I said, achieve a common goal.
Yeah. It seems like you and Hailey have figured it out pretty fast. This partner thing. Do you guys know if you're going to play together at SC, or are you guys just playing together because you're roommates and you're obviously a fantastic team?
Yeah, we've had such a blast, just like not just on the court, but just like outside of the court.
Yeah.
Friendship wise, we're very similar, and we have the same personalities and like humor sense. So it's just been a blast. And then obviously we're roommates, so it makes it easy for us to like go set up practices and drive to the same place. And we do really enjoy playing together. And I would love to play with her in the spring, but obviously it's up to the coaches and what they decide is best for the team. And so I think we're both in that boat of like understanding like we're willing to accept whatever role is given to us and like do that to the best of our ability. But it would be such a cool thing to play together for sure.
Yeah. Well, you're making a good case for it. I'm sure Dane's been watching like, all right, well, it's working so far. But you, after, I mean, so Hawaii, you graduated, right? You got your bachelor's. And then you had another tough decision to make. Was it a similar, like when you chose SC, was it kind of a similar thing where you had peace in that decision? Like, I don't know if that was right away, if it was harder to go from Carolina to Hawaii or Hawaii to SC.
Yeah. So originally I was gonna stay at Hawaii, but since I graduated, like they didn't have like a master's program that aligned with what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And plus I was still like, I'm so far from home. Like even still being on the other coast, it makes such a difference time zone wise, because
Yeah.
I could call my mom after practice and it not be like 12 at night or
I know.
um so I knew like that aside from volleyball, I wanted to have a program that aligned with what I wanted to do and not just put all my eggs in one basket in the sense of, oh, I'm going to only make this decision based on volleyball.
Hmm.
Um, and so it was honestly like another crazy, crazy God thing and total peace about it. But Willa, who I'm rooming with now, was my first ever beach contact. She created the beach volleyball club team at Carolina. So
Okay.
she started that. She like ran the practices. That was like when I first started just exploring beach. Like I met her. We actually met with like the head athletic director at Carolina to try to create a varsity sport so that I didn't have to leave. Was like, why don't we just start a program here? But that honestly, or not honestly, that didn't really work out. So, anyways, I was like in the process of making this decision, and I get a text from Willa kind of out of the blue, and I was like, and on this is on Monday, and on Sunday I was like, God, like I don't know what to do, like just like I pray praying for a sign, praying that he would show me where he wanted me to go. And she texted me out of the blue and is like, "Hey, Julie, like, how's season going? Like, how have you been? Like, miss you." And I'm like, "Oh, good. Like, it's been good. Like, how are you? Like, how's work?" Because she was a year older. So she was like working in one of the medical departments at Duke, I think. And she was like, "Work's good, but exciting news. I'm starting a graduate program in the fall at USC. Or not a graduate program, a PhD." She's brilliant. So I was
Okay.
like, I was like, no way. And in my mind, before I got too excited, I was like, she has to mean South Carolina, because no one from like the
Right.
East is up and move, especially like because Willa and I are very similar, where we're like kind of homebodies, and
Yeah.
it's crazy to look back at my life and be like, so much has happened, but it doesn't really like align with like exactly who I am, because I am such like a homebody per se. And so I was like, she has to meet in South Carolina. And then she was like, "No, like, I'm going to Southern Cal." I was like, "You're kidding me." I was like, "That's insane." It was just like a crazy, crazy moment. And I was like, I'm supposed to, for sure, supposed
Yeah.
to get.
There's your sign.
And then even after that, like, it just continued to solidify. Like, Sarah, who I met at Carolina through Athletes in Action, which was like the Christian organization, because Duke came over and like also did like a night at Carolina. And I met her and we were just talking, and this was right when I was like leaving for Hawaii. And
Yeah.
she posted and was like, "Oh, like starting going to Southern California." I was like, "Sarah, no way." So then we connected and now we're all living together. So it's seriously like such a God thing. It's unreal, honestly.
That's awesome. How big is this house? I feel like it just keeps expanding in number of people.
It's 5 bed, 5 bath. So it's,
Whoa.
yeah. So it's actually like a super good deal for all of us being able to have our own space.
Yeah.
And
I don't know if I've ever seen a 5-5 before. 5 beds, 5 bath. That's luxury living for a college student. But you mentioned that the kind of the Olympics is your big goal, and you get to live with someone who's going to the Olympics. That's probably pretty awesome just to just like have Tina around, and it's cool that she's back too to play for one more year before the Olympics.
Yeah, it's unreal. Like, it's so awesome just because just being in her presence, I'm like, this is inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's just such a cool, down to earth person as well. And then, yeah, so we all just get along super well. And then going down to the court, we played one time last week just because our schedules align.
Yeah.
But we obviously want to play like all the time. And just watching her play and compete is just like it's like I said, it's just very inspiring. And like she also is very willing to like give feedback and advice. So just in that practice alone, like she gave me information that I was like, I never even thought about that. So
Yeah.
now like it's just so awesome to like have a role model and like be living in their close quarters.
Yeah. Now you have a not so mini coach at
Yeah,
USC.
big coach.
Yeah. Are you and Tina, I feel like, are you about the same height? I feel like you're built pretty
I
similar.
think she's like one. We talked about this the other day. I think she's like a quarter inch taller because
Okay.
I'm 5'11 3/4 and she's 6 feet.
Oh, you couldn't get that last quarter of an inch?
I'm for the doctor. I'm like, please.
Did my hair grow a little longer this time?
Yeah, it's always the 3/4.
Yeah, I feel like she's like literally a perfect person for you to learn from though, because you're like same height, that quarter of inch makes a huge difference, but same height, like similar game style too. Because I remember watching her and she was like big physical blocker, like booming jump serve like you have. Although I think you probably have one of the best jump serves I've seen on the women's side of the beach.
Thank you, but I did not think that. Get it more consistent because like I'll have like on serving days where I feel like pretty comfortable, and
Yeah.
then where I'm like I just shouldn't serve at all. But obviously you have to. So I
Yeah.
just said to my partner, I'm like, I'm sorry for this. Lollipop or a miss.
Did did like Jeff or Evan, did they kind of get you jump serving early, just to let you know like what a weapon that is, because I feel like that is just such a defensive weapon. And when I first started learning how to play, it's funny, my buddy Joey Keener, who was like my first coach, he was like, listen, your skills are terrible. You're not going to win unless you can jump serve. And I was like, all right. So I just started hitting jump serve by myself, and it ended up like being the best recipe for earning points. It's like, oh, I don't really have to pass if I can just get an ace.
That's awesome. Yeah, Jeff always told and emphasized that serving is a weapon. And I think from indoor, I would topspin on the indoor side. So like I was like more comfortable with that than float serving, just
Yeah.
because that's what I did. And so then coming over the beach, I was like, oh, like what's the difference? Like you obviously have to take into account the wind and like maybe lowering the toss so that outside factors don't play as much of a role. And then like the shorter court and just fine tuning it to the beach was like definitely a challenge. And still I'm like, oh, like I still don't feel 100% comfortable and that I have like the right recipe, but just continuing to just figure it out and trying to find those nuances that better work with the serve. That's like my goal. And then also my goal is to have just like as good as a top or a float as a top, so that like they're interchangeable, and whenever my top's off, like my float will still be a weapon per se.
Yeah. Float serving travels well.
Long way out.
Well, is there anything in particular that you're kind of working on now and refining before whatever the 2021 season will look like?
Yeah, I want to say all of it. That's like definitely not the best way to fix everything, because
Yeah.
obviously you can only focus on like one or two things during one practice to be most effective. I'd say I'm really trying to work on pulling and making that decision, and then
Okay.
also digging the pull, because right now it's like if I pull, just hit the ball into the vicinity of where I'm pulling, and you have to. Yeah, so I definitely am trying to work more on like the tortilla or whatever it's called, and then
Okay.
also my dream has always been to like pokey a pull too, but that's never
Okay.
yeah. Like more ball control with pulling and digging, and then also shots. I'm working on my shots.
I think it's always good to start with having a really good fastball like you do, and then you can work in the
Yeah.
changeups. I think you went in the right order.
Okay.
But I know that you have a busy day coming up at USC, so I don't want to keep you for much longer. But is there anything else that you want to add, or anything else you want to chat about that we haven't covered?
Not that I can think of. This has been a fun hour.
Yeah, it was great. Always great catching up with you. You're always smiling, always happy. So always fun chatting with you, Julia.
Oh, thank you.
We'll have a great rest of the day. Have a good practice with Hailey and Big Coach.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon enough.
Yes. In Clearwater.
In Clearwater, that's right. You're coming in this weekend. What day are you flying in?
Thursday.
Okay. All right. Well, I will see you, if not Friday, then Saturday and Sunday.
All righty.
All right. See you, Julia. Travel safe.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.